one thing is when you play, have you ever really looked at your floating tremolo system when you're doing string bends? You might not be able to see it from this angle, but when you're doing bends, this actually rises up and down off of the guitar. I don't know if you could see that or not, but we'll do a side view showing a bend on that. But you can also see it from the back side here, that when you do a bend on the guitar, the whole bridge assembly moves back and forth. And basically, with it moving back and forth like that, it makes your strings, other strings, go out of tune. If you're trying to play two separate notes, one that requires a bend and one doesn't, the one that's not being bent is going to lower in pitch. I'm sure most people will not hear that unless you're in a mission critical recording situation. But basically what's happening there is you're putting more tension on one string and it's putting less tension on everybody else. Or even with one that's decked, the decked one is always going to keep the strings tight. So if you happen to break a string with your one-way style tremolo system and you got the thing locked all the way down to the body, that's not going to affect the rest of the guitar being in tune. It's supposed to flow up and down, and it stays in tune because of the tension of the strings versus the tension of the springs. Keeps everything where it's supposed to be. If you happen to break a string, everything is going to go out of whack, and now you're going to be totally out of tune. Pick a guitar that feels good to you, and whether it has a floating tremolo system or not, if you get one like this, you got the best of both worlds. You can have it floating, you can use it like that, or you could block it. So maybe some days you want to play with it blocked, maybe some days you want to play with it floating, but either way, you're going to be able to use this. So I'm running a non-scientific experiment on the sound of the springs in a non-blocked configuration. And the springs, even though they're not fully extended, they're set up so the tremolo will return to tune. So everything is set up properly for the guitar to work with a floating tremolo setup. And even in this type of configuration, the springs still add a lot of extra sustain and ringing when you're playing notes on your guitar. And I would think that the pickups would pick up on that when you're playing into an amp and just give it that classic sound. But it's just really, you can hear the springs ringing when you're playing these notes. So that's the springs adding to the extended sound of the note being played, and it just adds a really nice sound and feeling to each note that you play. It's really just something that you only get with a guitar that has the tremolo system and the springs on it.